Hello, I'm Sean Lydon, the CEO at Lydon Communications and the host of the Systematic Selling Podcast, where we share strategies, trends, and best practices to help you scale your sales and build a business you love. If you haven't already done so, stop what you're doing. Go to systematicselling.co. That's systematicselling.co. Drop your email address to receive in your inbox not only the podcast episodes, but also our articles to help you level up your sales game. Now, bear with me for a few minutes because this will be a longer intro than usual. That's because today I have my longtime friends and clients, David Harper and Russ Clemmer, join me on the pod to talk about something really special to us and hopefully to you. David is the founder and chairman. Russ is the CEO of Legacy Advisory Partners, an Atlanta-based financial services firm that helps business owners attract and retain their key leaders. And we're going to talk about a new book the three of us collaborated on, aptly titled Collaboration Effect on Profit. The subtitle is Overcoming Founder Syndrome to Achieve Sustainable Success. So why talk about this book on the Systematic Selling Podcast? Well, why wouldn't we? Many of you are founders or aspire to be, or you're a sales leader with a team that reports to you. The biggest barrier to success, whether we're founders, owners, or leaders of any stripe, is ourselves. We get in our own way. We get in our team's way. We become the bottleneck to growth. That's the crux of founder syndrome. The strengths that get you to initial success, such as shooting from the hip, closing all the deals, and making all the decisions, will stunt your organization's future growth. Founder syndrome causes you to cling to excessive control in the business for too long. It stifles collaboration, hinders innovation, and undercuts financial performance. As founders and sales leaders, we all suffer from it to one degree or another. That's part of the human condition. But what can you do about it? How do you fight off the effects of founder syndrome to achieve success that will last? Our book tackles this issue and offers a powerful vision of your business, life, and legacy if you confront founder syndrome head on. You'll learn how to, 1, strengthen your leadership character by practicing 8 timeless virtues, the antidote to the vices that cause founder syndrome. Number 2, you'll learn how to build a healthy culture where large-scale collaboration can flourish by instilling those 8 virtues throughout your team and organization. Number 3, you'll learn how to produce consistently exceptional financial performance by aligning interests and incentives with what we call the 3 wins framework. This book will help you lead your company or your sales team with everyone rowing together in the same direction toward a common purpose. That's what the collaboration effect on profit, the CEOP, looks like in action. When you unleash the CEOP, you will overcome the resistance of founder syndrome and build a company with unstoppable momentum. Now, I have a warning. Working on this book has ruined me by forcing me to think bigger, with a greater vision of the possibilities for my own company and what we plan to do with systematic selling, and to think bigger about the legacy I want to leave with my family. My prayer is that it will ruin you as well. So don't listen to this episode or read this book if you're content with where you are. But if you're ready to get wrecked, then by all means, listen and then follow the link in the show notes to grab your copy of the book. So get ready for this impactful conversation with David and Russ on episode 16 of the Systematic Selling Podcast. David and Russ, welcome to the pod.
Good morning.
Good to be here.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to talk about founder syndrome. What is it? Who's vulnerable to it? And then discuss how our new book, Collaboration Effect on Profit breaks down the virtuous principles and the financial framework needed to fight off founder syndrome and build a business that lasts. But before we do, I want our audience to get to know you guys a little bit better. So, David, we're going to start with you. My understanding is you grew up in the Atlanta area. Is that correct?
Yeah, in Stone Mountain area. Ann and I, my wife and I both went to Clarkston High School, the Clarkston Angora Goats. That's what we were called.
Awesome. And I take it you must have been a football star there because you went on to play at Davidson College as quarterback. Is
Played, yeah,
that?
played at Davidson, and that was sort of my life. Focused on football,
Yeah.
and really it was fun, a good opportunity there, really a thrill and opportunity to get to play a lot. And then after Davidson, I was a graduate assistant coach at Furman for about 9 months, and
Yeah.
learned a lot down there. That was fun. Then I actually taught English and coached football and track in high school for about 2.5 years.
Okay.
And then the other thing I can't help but talk about is that we did win the state championship in football. This would have been the fall of '76.
So you did win the state championship.
We did, yeah.
Awesome. That's great. Now, you said graduate assistant coach at Furman.
Yeah.
What were you studying at Furman?
I was working on getting my education certificate. So I was getting some more postgraduate. I was an English major at Davidson.
So coming out of college, you were looking to be a full-time teacher and coach. That's what you were looking to do?
I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted, but my whole life had been based on sports. So I just thought that's sort of the next thing.
Yeah.
And but then after I've been starving to death and being overworked and underpaid. I told Ann, I said, I think the Lord
three
has
of us
something else
understand
for
that. Yeah.
So I entered the business world, in the financial services world, 1978.
Okay. So let's talk about that. You're teaching and coaching. It sounds like you lasted just a little bit longer than I did. I lasted an entire year as an English teacher and track coach. So you lasted what, 2, 3 years? How long did you last there?
Well, 2.5 years teaching and coaching in high school.
So you then go into financial services. Why? What led you to financial services versus anything else you could have been doing there?
I just had this feeling of something else is going to be happening. And I told Lana, I said, I think the Lord has something else for us. And I got a call from one day from Charlie Barton, who was the manager of our office here in Atlanta. And I had met somebody, and his name Joe, and Joe had given him my name, and I got the call at school one day, and they come and get me out of class, and I take the call, and he says, Joe tells me you're the kind of guy I need to meet. So he went down there and he recruited me into the insurance business. And he said, David, if you're playing football, or you can be a star for a period of time.
Yeah.
But in this business, you can be a star for life. I said, okay, sign me up.
Wow. Wow. Almost the Wolf of Wall Street pitch right there.
Close, man.
Matthew McConaughey taking David out to lunch. Wow.
It wasn't nearly that big a deal. It was, here you go get your list of 100 names, start calling your friends and family members and talking to them about their insurance needs. So it was pretty basic start.
So when you do that, are you a W-2 employee, or were you essentially an independent contractor? I mean,
It was a W-2 category for agents of principal, even though we did have access to other carriers, but they were sort of the primary carrier, and we were encouraged to kind of write business with principal.
And so when did you ultimately decide to go into business for yourself? I mean, I met you in the mid 1990s, and that's when it was the Harper Financial Group. And
so it was kind of a progression in that I had this epiphany in the fall of '94 of wondering whether I was in the right business or not.
Yeah.
No, I said, this is a good place that would make money, but I wonder if I maybe missed my calling. I felt the calling to be in the ministry back when I was in college.
Yeah.
And then after I did my study and analysis and met a lot of different people, I said, I don't want to do any of these things. So I felt like by default, I'd gone into business. But when I had this epiphany one morning in my office in the fall of 94, I felt like the Lord said, I've gifted you and I've placed you exactly where I want you to be. And I said, wow, really? This is it?
Yeah.
Man, so if this is it, what does a business need to look like? So that was the process of moving from a solopreneur to beginning to hire some people. But we didn't really officially launch a separate entity until 2000. And that was with 3 other partners back in the day.
Got it. So prior to that, you were an entrepreneur, but solo, meaning you were operating on a contract basis. And then
that's right.
You're like, look, let's build an organization around this. And then you ultimately launch what is now Legacy Advisory Partners in 2000.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Russ, let's go with you. So you grew up in Hilton Head, is that correct?
I did, yeah.
Like to vacation.
Yeah, I like to vacation there now too.
Yeah. I get it. I'm the same way with Fort Lauderdale. I grew up down there, and we can't quit it. Going back. So you went from Hilton Head to, where'd you end up going to undergrad? Was it a Bible college? Where'd you end up going?
Columbia Bible College.
Yeah. How far away from home was that?
Yeah. It's a couple hours. Columbia, South Carolina, the armpit of the South is how it's affectionately referred to. It's like people don't really go to Macon, ideally, right?
Yeah.
Because it's that hot, balmy, sandy, right, short tree kind of place. Columbia's the same way. Columbia's the same way. But they got a great little Bible college there. And I decided to go there because I had taken a gap year and gone to study at a couple little small schools. I spent about 4 months at one term in Austria, up in the Alps at a little school, little Bible school. And then spring of that gap year, I spent another 4 months in Spain on the Mediterranean in a little town called El Campello. And great little Bible schools, and they're designed because there's no real conservative Bible college in Europe. So they do these smaller schools, and man, that was great. But I realized, man, there's a lot of people who are smarter than me and paid more attention to me and studied more than me. And so I came back and went to Bible college to round out some of those gaps in my theological understanding.
What were you looking to learn when you were out in Europe for your gap year?
What was I looking to learn, and what I did learn?
What were your expectations?
Those are two very different things.
What'd you get out of it?
I didn't have many expectations going in, other than the fact that I was going to Europe for a year. And, it's just, all right, that sounds like a great adventure. Yeah. What I did learn is that the world's a pretty small place. And if you're following the Lord, the struggles are pretty similar wherever you go, right? And that's what resonated, I think, with David's conversations with the virtues and the vices, that they are universal no matter where you go. The church is small, right? The church is small, not physically. It's very complex. People all over the world doing different things, worshiping in different ways, different perspectives, different culture, different routines, different, very different. Yeah. But the church is a pretty small place, and everybody struggles with the same thing because we're human and we live under sin. And so, I went over there to have a bunch of adventure, broke my ankle a couple of weeks in, surgery, spent a week in an Austrian hospital. That's a very different experience than the U.S. Imagine. Great care, but just very different. And then, you ask that question, Lord, why am I here? Yeah. Right. You brought me all the way over here. I can't ski, can't rock climb, can't do all the things you'd think you'd be doing in the Alps. Yeah. With a busted ankle, 3 screws, and, a whole bunch of maintenance to do on it. And so you go through that process. And what I did learn is that when God wants me to rest and reflect, he usually puts my physical body into some sort of vice, right? not virtue vice conversation, but just some sort of, right. He just turns that, puts my, whether it's my ankle or a back problem or, whatever it is, if I need to slow down, I usually don't listen until he says, and that was a moment, right? I was running 1,000 miles an hour, nowhere. And so I got over there and was able to pay attention to relationships and people in a way that I'm very glad I got to be able to. And then, but it just convinced me that I didn't know a lot, right? I'd done a lot of church things, but I didn't know a lot. So that's what led me back to Columbia Bible College in South Carolina.
And what were you looking to do? So when you go to Columbia Bible College, what did you want to become? Did you want to become a teacher and a coach as well? Or were you looking to go into a more formal type of clergy type ministry?
Yeah. Well, again, let's go see what happens was my motto. And so I went in and went down the path of becoming a classroom teacher, teaching Bible. And then at some point, I love the material, but at some point I got scared to death. And I said, no, this is not the exact thing. And then I decided to go into the most marketable of majors, humanities.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that was a great decision. I say that with in jest, but also in all seriousness. I got to read and study the history of the world's perspective of God, and then his son, Jesus Christ, and then the history from that point forward. And it was fascinating. In fact, it was fascinating. And I can say I did what I went there to do, and that was to learn and to grow. But not having a marketable degree, I was challenged by my dad. He said, hey, just go get an MBA. And he said it like flippantly, just go get an MBA. I'm thinking, what do you mean just go get an MBA? And sure enough, I went and got an MBA, Gardner-Webb University in Bowling Springs. I started at the Citadel. That was a lot of fun. Great place. So much history in Charleston, South Carolina.
Absolutely.
But I was offered a job teaching phys ed, coaching, that sort of thing. And so moved over to Charlotte, moved up to Charlotte and had some family there and really enjoyed my time there. And that's where I ended up meeting Lauren Harper.
Yeah. David's daughter. So
David's daughter, one and only daughter. Yeah. Yeah. We had met a while ago back in middle school and I didn't remember it. I get to blame it on
how'd you guys meet in middle school?
I get to blame it on a concussion. We were at the same Louis Giglio camp in Chattanooga, Tennessee at Lookout Mountain.
Small
at Covenant College. Yeah. They came over from Norcross and I came up from Hilton Head with my youth group. She remembers me the last night at camp. I ended up in the hospital with 10 stitches in my lip. We were playing a game we shouldn't have been playing, just basically tackle each other. And me and another guy collided while we're tackling this other guy. And he had my tooth cut his cheek open.
Oh my
after
goodness.
It went through my lip.
Yeah.
Both ended up in the hospital, concussion. I didn't know where I was, all that, all that fun stuff. But anyway, fast forward, we were in Charlotte and I was teaching and studying. That's my whole life. Professor canceled class. I went to a singles Bible study worship time at a church in Charlotte that night since class was canceled and Lauren was there. And we, through a series of conversations, reconnected and began dating and got engaged and got married all in about 8 months. So pretty.
Interesting thing about that is that, we used to vacation in Hilton Head all the time. And Lauren didn't forget Russ. She referred to him as Russell Clemmer. And somehow she had gotten a picture of him and saved a picture of Russ. So she had had a crush on Russ ever since the 9th grade. And she would say, we'd go down there, she'd say, hey, you think we could look up Russell Clemmer down here in Hilton Head? I said, no, we're not chasing boys, but God's providence worked it out.
Yeah. Well, if she had looked me up, she'd have had to find me either riding a lawnmower or digging a ditch. That's the version of Hilton Head that I learned how to vacation on Hilton Head from Lauren.
Yeah.
I had never vacationed. You're a local. You go to the beach, but after you've gotten all your work done.
I'm curious, what was Lauren doing in Charlotte at the time?
She was teaching.
She was teaching as well. Was she teaching at the same school?
No. She was a public school teacher, and she had gone from Africa.
Yeah.
Teaching in Africa, come back, working in Virginia Beach for a little while. She'd had a relative up there. She was spending some time with and working, and then led her to Charlotte, put it that way. Yeah. So she was teaching at a different school closer to the city. I was a little bit outside of the city, in a suburb, teaching at a private school. And so it was the Lord just kind of coordinating the details of us being able to get back together.
I love that
story.
I do too. And something else that struck me that I didn't connect the dots, and we've all known each other for years, but just now connecting the dots, that the three of us are blessed with humanities degrees, and we were all teachers and coaches.
Yeah, that's true.
When we first got
liberal arts degrees.
Yeah.
Teachers and coaches. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
But I beat all three. I lasted for 8 years.
You know, you definitely outlasted us, man.
Yeah.
So talk me through that then. So you were teaching and coaching for 8 years. By then you've established a career rhythm. You've established certain habits. Why change? Why not be like those guys that, do it 30, 40 years, and, especially since you were at a private school, you go off and retire. What happened?
Yeah. Well, it kind of got to the point where I enjoyed the students. I enjoyed the rhythm. I enjoyed what we were doing. But if I was going to advance, then I needed to go back to school, more than likely get a doctorate of education. And I was, in my mind, positioning myself to find a program and to how to get it done. And Lauren and I had some good conversations about it, but I didn't necessarily feel called to that. It was just a logical progression, right? Part of it was I needed to make more money. Part of it was I had done what I was doing for a while, and I kind of figured it out, and I wanted to, move on to something a little more substantial, a little more of a learning opportunity, growing opportunity.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind changing schools. I didn't mind changing locations. It wasn't necessarily that. It was just that next step in the process. And so, that was 2012, 2013. We were going through that conversation. And it was late spring of 2013 when David's business partner passed away. And so the need and urgency for David to figure out some next steps, whatever that looked like, began to be pressing on him. And so, David, you kind of went through a couple of different iterations of what that could be like, right? You talked to some different folks.
Yeah. Well, Bill had a really good friend and business partner, Bill Straw, had died in 2013 in January. And we were sort of in mourning for a period of time. It was really, because it had been an 18-month sickness. And then one morning, Ann and I are downstairs having our coffee and our devotions together. And I'm pacing around down there. I'm saying, what am I going to do? I need to hire somebody. And then that's when this prophetic word came out of her mouth. You need to hire Russ. And it's like when she said it, it was like, okay. It's like God had spoken.
So that thought never crossed your mind until
I had thought about it in passing, but I said, it wouldn't, in my mind, I was thinking, I thought Russ would be too risk averse. That was sort of in my mind. But then when she said
because he was coaching for 8 years?
Well, not so much that, just that, that was my impression at the time.
Yeah.
And then
I am a risk averse person.
Yeah.
But that's actually worked to our benefit, that he is
100%.
wired the way he is. But then having his MBA, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And then we had some, either had or were having conversations. Russ had taught a voluntary course on leadership development to the students. So he was big into leadership development. And he liked the idea of the virtues that sort of fit in very much with his passion.
Yep.
So that was, I think the virtues were sort of our first kind of point of common ground that we identified with and said, wow, what could this mean in the business world?
Let me hit the pause button real quick before we dive into it. So what David is referring to when he says the virtues, he's talking about what he calls the grade 8 virtues, and we unpack that in this book. And these virtues are in contrast to their corresponding vices, and they're based on the Beatitudes. So in this conversation, we're going to be talking more about these virtues, plus we'll link to more information so you can see the list of them. But that gives you a frame of reference. When we're talking about the virtues in this conversation, we're talking about the grade 8. All right, David, keep rolling, man.
Well, and so you might want to tell Russ the part about where I formally asked you when you all had come down to visit us.
No, yeah, this is funny. Well, for years, a couple of years we'd been married. We'd started a family. I think we were two kids with one on the way, I think.
Wow.
And hence the need to, make a little bit more money. We were headed to Ann and David's. And Ann and David, y'all live on the Lake Lanier. And it would be our routine before we had kids. And then we didn't alter our routine after Lauren and I started having kids. But our routine, David and I's routine, was I'd give them a call. Hey, we're in Greenville, driving from Charlotte. We're in Greenville. So David would know he had 2 hours to get the bait, get the snacks, crank the boat up by the time I got in the driveway. And I would get out of the car, walk through the house, say hello to Ann, and get in the boat. And David and I would take off, go fishing for a couple hours.
Yeah.
And, give Ann and Lauren some time to catch up, things
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Very thoughtful of us.
Well, that turned into a situation that Lauren did not prefer. And so I had to say, David, all right, can't do that anymore. Right. We gotta come up with a different rhythm. Right. And so this trip in, I think it was May of 2013, Lauren says, hey, Dad wants to go fishing when we get there. Take you fishing when we get there. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, this is a trap. I'm supposed to say, no, darling, no. I'm going to stick around and help with the kids and this and that, dinner and all that. She said, no, go ahead. I said, okay. So I get on the boat. We're going out there. And David's not his normal chatty self. And
he's got his game face on.
Got it. Yeah. And hey, just we're having fun. We're catching a few fish, but it was just like, what? And Lauren had said, Dad has something he wants to talk to you about. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right. So then he says, Russ, you want to come work for Legacy? And he didn't say it in those few words, but basically, do you want to come and work for Legacy? Well, I don't know how to spell 401k. So, what are we talking about here? What exactly are we talking about? So we talked through and really his heart for passing Legacy on to another generation of, family generation, passing the virtues and the vices and that message on. And so that was really probably what clicked. And I had taken several courses in my MBA that related to corporate investment, that related to corporate HR, different things that we touch on in the nuances of our financial services offerings. And it was interesting. Like it was that same, why'd I go on a gap year? Well, it's interesting. Yeah. It's going to be an adventure. And has this ever been an adventure?
Absolutely.
And so you kind of walk through some of those things. And why'd you do that? It was like, well, I don't have a list of things, right? John Maxwell talks about making a pros and cons list, and maybe I should have done that. But Lauren and I just looked at each other and said, yeah, why not? There's no other clear path forward. And it was just that piece that passes all understanding of why do you make a big move like that?
Yeah. At that
and so,
time, go ahead.
No, that's it. Go ahead.
I'm curious, at that time that David takes you out on the boat, and thankfully it's not like the Godfather scene where only one person comes back. I mean, you both come back, and
well, it was just the two of us. I didn't let anybody behind. David in front of me the whole time.
That's exactly right. At that time, how did you imagine your future? Did you see yourself becoming an owner of a business in that moment, or were you just focused on, hey, let me just take one step at a time here? What was your vision at that moment?
Yeah, well, I think David laid it out. It was pretty simple. All right, come and learn. If you like it, great. If you can sell, great. Then if you want to own it, great. Right? As a progression. It wasn't an expectation to own it. It wasn't an expectation to be able to sell. It was just an expectation to learn. And if you liked it, great. If you don't, you've learned a lot. And David can still make other plans.
Yeah.
If you like it and you can sell it, well, then that's a nice combination. And then if you want to own it, then that's kind of it was no pressure other than just come and learn.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have anything from a pros and cons that risk averse. I didn't have to commit to more than what was.
Yeah.
I mean, David didn't have to commit to anything either. I mean, it was other than bringing somebody on and having to teach and invest in the learning phase. I mean, the risk to him was, I moved on and he had to start all over again.
Well, here's the interesting part of this is that, when I first came to the business, I was very basic. Yeah. Well, by the time Russ comes in, Mark and I had been working together for 20 years in some very sophisticated situations. Yeah. And so Russ comes in, and he's learning a whole new financial language, drinking from a fire hose. And
absolutely.
So that was a tough adjustment, but I will say this. After about 6 to 9 months of Russ being in the business, going through all his licensing, getting all those things worked out, I remember calling his dad and said, Rusty, just want to let you know Russ is really doing well. I think he really has a knack for this.
Wow.
And Rusty, you could tell he kind of had a tear or two that he shed right there. He was, happy for his son. So, because see, Russ had been working with his dad for years in the landscape business. So it was sort of a little bit of a giving up that Rusty had to do with Russ, because he was coming to take over our business rather than
taking over
his family business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There were some good conversations there, but I think the good thing about it is sometimes you can be family and work together, and sometimes you can't, you shouldn't. Yeah. And David and I have been able to balance both. And my dad and I are a lot alike. And so it wasn't a great work every day, earn a living together kind of situation.
Yeah.
And you look at it and you think, well, that would have been fun if it had worked. But I also don't love digging ditches for other people.
Yeah.
Right. And I say that in jest. My dad does phenomenal, the whole spectrum of landscape design and implementation and development. But at the end of the day, I had held a shovel for a long time. I'm 20, almost 30 when we're making this transition. And I mean, there's no doubt I'd had times where I thought, okay, this teaching thing's been good. I'm going to go back. I'm going to move back to Hilton Head.
Yeah. And
either, merge something in with my dad or figure out a way to make it happen. And there just wasn't a piece about it. Yeah. And so, we joke about, life as a landscaper. You can have a shovel in the back of your truck, in the bed of your truck, and no one's ever going to steal it because they don't want to use it, and they can't sell it to anybody. And so that idea of work, and just because I don't, it's a shame, because you're in much better shape if you do the landscaping work than if you sit in a desk chair in the comforts of air conditioning and doing a Zoom call like we're doing. But you you do have there's an appreciation for what I did on that job and what I do on this job. You got to dig, you got to go search for the right things. You got to put things in the right design, implement all those different things. You're just working with plants and bushes and pallets of sod. And here you're working with financial concepts.
Yeah.
It's all the same thing. You gotta know where things go and how to talk to the owner and how to talk with the people who are, sitting there with their priorities. What are they trying to do? So a lot of the stuff translates.
Yeah.
Except the dust and sweat and all those other great things that come with landscaping.
Absolutely. And what's also great about your story, so this was 10 years ago, maybe a little longer. And then 10 years later, November 1st, 2023, you guys celebrated passing the baton. So you not only work with clients in terms of helping them map out an effective succession strategy, but you guys were living it out and taking this dream that David initially had and felt this calling in 1994 to start a company, officially do it in 2000, Legacy Advisory Partners.
Yeah.
And then, from there, 2 decades later, handing it off to your son-in-law. So, a family of owners, I got to imagine that was a really special moment for both of you.
Yeah. We had started the process back in 2016. And I remember I actually brought someone in to kind of give me some advice on, even though that's what we do in our business, I needed a third party perspective. And he said, well, you check with your other sons first, see what, but before you go too far down this road. So I sat down with David and Daniel, and see, David had actually worked with Legacy for 6 years, but he was inclined to go do his own thing. And so he did. So after having that conversation with both of them, they both said, no, let Russ be our choice.
Yeah.
And so I'd actually had spoken to our junior associate, Mark Walker, who'd been with me a long time, and asked him, what's your vision for who would be running the company beyond me? And he said, to his credit, he said, I know I have more experience, but Russ has that extra quality that I think he should be the guy. So all the, it was a process to get there, and then we started mapping it out, and then to see it actually, wow, what we talked about in 2016, all those steps we worked on for all those years, the legal documents, the growth models that we had envisioned, the cash flows, and all those things. It worked out, and so I'm still involved, but I don't own the company anymore, and I think there's a real freedom that I feel, and I think Russ and Mark feel, that they've got this. And I think I'm sensing in them a new level of excitement and vision that they're going to bring under their regime that would never happen under mine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll add to that if I can, Sean. The David is a true entrepreneur. I am let's see what somebody else has started and how can I help improve it and how can I help take it forward.
An operator is the way
an operator. Yeah. And I've got some entrepreneurial tendencies, but I'm not I've got friends. David's an example of that. I've got other friends who they're on their 10th, 11th business.
Yeah.
Right. It's just, once one gets to where it's stable, they lose interest. And that's just the way God's made it.
Yep.
And, being able to look at what we're doing, the financial services piece, there's still a lot of refinement that we're doing, especially in the areas of the 3 wins. And what does a founder need to be thinking about through the filter of God owns my business? What are the family and financial legacy questions they need to be thinking about through that filter of God owns my business?
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on there. But I think one of the biggest things at the time, as David mentioned, being 30 and trying to teach 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds about leadership.
Yeah.
I had enough where I could communicate with them. But the beauty of it is, you sit down and try to work through that, and you realize how much you don't know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's been nice with the virtues and the vices is that, we talk about that. It's a little bit different, or a lot different, for financial advisor to be sitting there talking about organizational development concepts. And that's what these are: better culture, better team, better collaboration, better leadership, all those different concepts into one. And that's where, David is still able to, all that to say, back to David's point, legacy has been transitioned leadership and ownership wise, but there's still so much to be developed on this concept. And so this book that we're launching, that we wrote together, is really just another piece of that conversation, that organizational development conversation. And it goes back to profit or culture. Well, no, both. They go together.
Yeah.
They complement one another. Culture isn't free. Great cultures are not inexpensive. And profit isn't what it could be unless you have a great culture with great collaboration.
Right.
They go hand in hand. And so that's that's the exciting thing about this, is being able to see what else is there for us to develop and to work on through that concept of collaboration based on the virtues and the vices.
100%. And you teed that up just perfectly, because what we're going to do right now is break down some of the concepts that we talk about in the book, and also how you guys have applied it in the business, whether in your own business and with clients. And to give the audience a quick overview, there are essentially 3 concepts that we talk about, starting with founder syndrome as being the problem that afflicts all of us who run a business. You don't have to be the actual founder. You could be a second generation, third generation, or you could just simply be a leader within the company. But the idea of founder syndrome is that sense where the strengths that you have that got you to where you are today actually become liabilities and obstacles for you to take your organization to the next level. So we talk about that as founder syndrome, as, okay, this is the problem that we're all afflicted with. How do we solve it? How do we not necessarily solve it, because you don't ever get rid of it, but how do we fight it? What can we do to keep overcoming it? And that's where these other 2 concepts come in. Earlier, we talked about the grade 8 virtues, and I'm going to give a quick overview of what those virtues are. So as the listening audience, you can take them in. Of course, you can click on the links and dig deeper. But those virtues are, starting with humility versus the vice of egotism. The second virtue is empathy versus busyness. The third is attentiveness versus distraction. The fourth is accountability versus greed. The fifth is acceptance versus anger. The sixth is integrity versus dishonesty. The seventh is peacemaking versus territorialism. And the eighth is courage versus fear. The way that and we'll dig deeper on, how David and Russ have developed the idea of the grade 8. But as an overview, the way you think of the grade 8 is you practice these virtues so that you can continually fight off these vices, because it is the vices that cause us to engage in founder syndrome, to be afflicted by founder syndrome. And it's a daily practice that you put in. And then the third concept that we talk about is, okay, once you've applied this to your own life, and then you're instilling the grade 8 virtues into your company to build a healthy culture, how then can you apply these virtues to achieve, exceptional financial performance
Right.
in your business? How does it translate into actual financial results? Not just some theory out here that sounds great. We're doing business in a virtuous way, but how can we apply it to be successful? And that's where the idea of the 3 wins comes in. And those 3 wins are the shareholder win, which the owners of the company, what does it take for you? What defines a win for you? Then the company win, that's the company is the goose that lays the golden egg.
Mm-hmm.
And if the goose is sick, if you're detracting from the company, then that creates issues for everyone. And then the third win is the key leader win. Your leaders who are there to collaborate together and to collaborate with you to build a company that achieves sustainable success. And the key there is to keep those wins in balance. And so the equation that we all talk about a lot when we're talking about collaboration effect on profit is, the 3 wins times the grade 8 equals collaboration effect on profit, what we call the CEOP. It's what unleashes that energy, that dynamism to build that momentum in the company. That's something that can last. So, David, what I want to do at this point is talk about how you originally came up with the grade 8 idea, and then as Russ came on board, that's when the 3 wins began to form. So talk to us about how you arrived at the grade 8 virtues, which you then eventually wrote a book about as well.
Well, it began, I had read a book by E. Stanley Jones, the Foundation and the Unchanging Person. And he talked about the kingdom of God as being reality.
Yeah.
And he talked about that the Beatitudes and the Sermon on the Mount align us with what is real, because what's real lasts for eternity.
Yeah.
Anything else is just temporary. And so so the idea came to me that, wow, I had back in college, I was a security guard one summer, and I had plenty of time on my hands, and I memorized a lot of scripture. I memorized the Sermon on the Mount back then. And so I was intrigued by it. But when I read this book, I said, wow, this is not just some theoretical thing. This is something to be applied today. And also going through 10 years as an owner and experiencing the dysfunction, the vices, even though we were well-intentioned, we were believers, wanted to do the right thing, but just we kept getting in our own way over and over again. And so when I talked to Bill back in 2010, I said, Bill, I think there's something here that we could establish guardrails for our culture around the Beatitudes. And so 2000, we published the book, The Grade 8.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that, well, I think right in that process, Sean, we started doing the articles on each virtue, advice, and then personal outcomes, corporate outcomes. And I think sometime in 2016, we got our call from one of our clients that said, hey, we need help with accountability. Can you help us do that?
Yeah.
So over a year's time, we actually hashed out some specific virtue applications in business that became the application steps we now use in the grade 8 process. But then later on, as we were working on these plans, so a big part of our business has been helping companies attract, motivate, and retain their key people.
Yeah.
Because we've seen so many times over the years where businesses would spawn their own competition. They didn't come up with a creative plan to incentivize and retain their key people. But we didn't really have a good structure in place to say, well, how do you define whether you had a good plan or not? How do you know if your plan's working or not? Well, that's what led us to this whole idea of the 3 wins. Well, a good plan is going to help the company, these three stakeholders, the owners, the company, and the key leaders, achieve the three wins.
Yeah.
And it's in balance and creates this collaboration effect. So that it happened a little bit later. And so now, 2024, the 2 years work that we put into this, we finally have institutionalized the process as it now stands.
Yeah.
And we're excited about getting that out. But the other thing that we're realizing is that this is just the beginning. There's going to be many other applications. We really feel like there's something that is, I'm going to say magical in a good sense, but it's magical and transformative about the virtues that normally would not happen otherwise. Most of the time, the vice discussion never comes up. It's the elephant in the room that nobody's willing to talk about.
Yeah.
And so if you're armed with the virtues and the vices, you can actually address the vices in a constructive way that builds culture and that leads to these three wins. So, but I think just like Sean, you're developing some new concepts around systematic selling.
Yeah.
It's really another way of applying virtue to the marketplace. So we're excited about having other people join in with this as they are incubators of the ideas.
Yep.
And can test them and then refine what we're talking about. We really feel like we're kind of part of a movement, and we're asking people join in with us in this movement of what we see as a spiritual awakening among entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. And I'll just real quick want to build on that point for our audience. So you guys know that, I told David and Russ, I said, working on this project for the past 2 years has absolutely ruined me. And I always saw myself as, a solopreneur, kind of a lone assassin, wouldn't mind, it, do my work, do my thing, not have to deal with people, and I go about my way. Doing this project has just transformed me in the sense that it has expanded my field of vision, going, yeah, am I being the best steward of my business? It's God's business.
Yeah.
Am I being the best steward of it? And if I truly believe that I'm bringing the value that I am to clients, why would I limit that? I mean, if it's something that I believe can transform other companies, why would I ever hold that back? I have a moral imperative to reach as many people as I can. And that's what expanded my vision to, build out systematic selling. That's why, we got this podcast and everything else because, we achieve great things through collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the essence. Founder syndrome is where you think, as we call it in the book, leading from the center of the circle. You're in the center of the circle.
Yeah.
Everything revolves around you. And the reality is, if you want growth, if you truly want to achieve not only your individual full potential, but your company's full potential, and to allow your customers to taste their full potential as they're serving them, then you need collaboration. You need to get outside of of that circle. And that is the essence of it. Russ, and both you and David, David, you share a story in the book where you talk about how if you hadn't had the virtues guiding your conversations, you had one instance during this transition, and we talked about that has been successful. There were situations where you had to work through disagreements.
Yeah.
And to me, that is a prime example of how the virtues guide organizations and allow them to work through it. Can you guys walk us through that story and how you work through those issues?
Well, the virtues really give you the guard to acknowledge when you slip into the vices.
Okay.
it's like the virtues act as like a mirror that's described in James chapter 1. And it talks about there in the negative of looking in the mirror and then leaving and forgetting what kind of person you are. But the one who looks intently at the perfect law is going to thrive and prosper. So what it helps you do is when you find yourself slipping the vice, you're able to catch yourself early and repent of it and move. So anyways, what happened was Russ and I had been working on our transition plan, our buy-sell agreement. We've been working with an attorney for a long time. And we had come up with what I thought was a fair valuation. And we were supposed to go meet with the attorney. And Russ calls me that morning and says, I'm not ready yet. What? What do you mean? We ordered this. I'm wanting to get it done, So yeah. So I got mad. And then it realized, I said, I can't believe it. Can you believe this? So anyway, but then I said, wait a second. We're talking about Russ one day having majority ownership of this company. If he's not comfortable with it, do I want to force it down his throat? No. So I called him back and I said, Russ, I can't remember I had expressed my anger to Russ. I just had to keep capping him. But anyway, I called. I said, Russ, thank you for holding your ground and standing by your conviction. We're going to take whatever time it takes to get this resolved. So we actually ended up having some more dialogue with a valuation expert who helped us resolve it. And that ended up becoming the formula that we use today for kind of how we did our transition of ownership.
That's awesome. Now, Russ,
what do you want to add to that, Russ?
Yeah. Did you sense his anger when you called him?
Yeah. And I, one of those rules of you shouldn't communicate via text or email, something that should be in person or over the phone. I may have texted it to him, but I had, my nature being somewhat risk averse, it just didn't, it was good in several ways, but it wasn't, I just had a sense of it wasn't the best. It wasn't that I had any other change of heart as far as the company and the future and doing what we had set out to do. I just didn't know enough to be able to say, why isn't this the best that it can be? And so in a couple of times that's happened in different ways with David and me. I mean, David's got so much more experience and knowledge. I just say, I don't think this is, I don't know what about it, but something. And we call these the famous David Harper 4:30 in the morning sessions. There'll be something that just is a question. And David has uncanny, it's really the Holy Spirit, maybe it's David, the Holy Spirit's favorite time to talk to David is 4:30 in the morning. We've had to tell David the Holy Spirit's favorite time for you to talk to us after that 4:30 session is not 5:30 in the morning. And so what we realized is that was an example of, all right, well, if this is not the best version, what else is? And it was, it wasn't, there was, wish I had known what the answer was, but I just didn't. And, if there's not a peace, there's not a peace.
Yeah.
And so, David expressed some frustration, which, I expected it. Let me put it that way. And if I had been David, I may have done things responded a little bit differently, even more so. But the outcome has been, and this is the thing, what we talk about with our clients.
Yeah.
The outcome has to be right for you and yours.
Right.
Right. It has to be right for all of the stakeholders. And what we had was good. It wasn't right, though.
Yeah.
It wasn't right.
Yeah. Well, Russ, I think Russ's his giftedness, his education, his getting his MBA. He used to tell me, David, you have some of these things written down or just in your head, and nobody else knows about it. It doesn't do us any good if you just keep it there. Yeah. So we got to get it down in our system, and that's been Russ's mantra since he came on board, and that's been very helpful for us because it's helped to institutionalize the process, and it's also helped us, take the focus off of me. Mm-hmm. And then I will say this: Russ has become more entrepreneurial, I think, as he's gained more confidence, and he has some visions for the future of legacy that I said, whoa, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. That's beyond what I could imagine myself. Yeah. So I think that's the beauty of it is that Russ can stay as his area of giftedness and still be able to, to articulate an amazing vision that I think other people will want to join in with over time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
one quick example.
Yeah.
So the context of the 3 wins, we were having a story crisis, I guess. Mm-hmm. And we had studied the story brand method with Donna Miller's book. And we were sitting there, and what I alluded to earlier of the idea of, well, are you guys financial advisors or are you organizational improvement consultants?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we would say yes. And they're like, no, you got to be one or the other. And we refused to give into that. We had to make some changes, and we had to come up with the story to where it would make sense. And we had to decide on what audience needed to hear that story the most. And so part of that is this founder syndrome audience. Yeah. But one thing, we sat down and we said, all right, we've got to be able to take this menu of financial services that we do well, and put it within a context of the hero of the story, which is the founder. Yes. The founder is the hero of the story. We're the narrator. Mm-hmm. And so we're the narrator guide. And so that was a 4:30 a.m. session where David, texts me a picture of his journal and says, this is what I'm thinking. And it was the 3 wins. Wow. Now it's taken, some sandpaper, right? To get it where we have it now, and who knows where it'll be in 10 years. But that's the idea of taking what's in David's head, which is one of the elements of the founder syndrome, is taking what is in David's head, mm-hmm. and getting it into a system, right, that is repeatable, transferable, scalable, whatever ABLE word you want to add that to. That's it. Right. That's the idea of, and so that's what the 3 wins is for us. I couldn't have dreamed up the 3 wins in 2 more lifetimes, because I just don't have the experience and the knowledge in the history of the industry and all of the different things going on. But we had identified the problem. We've got too many things to try to offer the client.
Yes.
Too many lists of services with no story. David comes back 48 hours later with the 3 wins. And so that's been nice to be able to walk down that road and understand and live out really the founder syndrome and the collaboration effect all at the same time.
Yeah. So what Russ and I have become to realize is that our role is to come alongside these founders, mm-hmm. and help them narrate the future story of their business in light of the 3 wins, the grade 8 equaling the collaboration effect on profit.
Yeah.
If they can do these things, their business, the impact it makes on their business is so beautiful, because it doesn't create the collateral damage, mm-hmm. that's normally a part of success in business, where marriages or families or employees get burned out. A lot of the negative things that happen. Our conviction is that this is going to accrue value and thriving for all the stakeholders, customers, employees, families, all those things, because it's this collaboration effect. It's the things that you can do collectively that you could never do siloed as individuals.
When you're walking alongside the founder and you're helping them craft that story, not a literal story, but help them craft a vision, a future for their company, what are some of the symptoms of founder syndrome when you're first working with them that you see emerge? What are the most common things you see that they're needing help with?
Most of the time and again, this, we've had there's founders who want to improve. There's founders who have the aptitude to improve. Then there's founders who they're in love with the idea of they're the ones that they're the ones that have done, there's the one that can, and they're the wizard, right? And they find some sort of pride in being the bottleneck. They don't ever call it the bottleneck, but
yeah.
Of those who say, okay, I got it here, it's got a long way to go, and I love what I do, and I don't want to necessarily get out of the circle entirely, but I don't want to be at the dead center where I'm the bottleneck. Most of the time, it's a lack of clarity between the owner or that person as an owner of the company and that person as the CEO, president of that company. And so where they fit, what their contribution is, what they need from the people around them, who do they not have around them that they need, and then what are the outcomes of that alignment that they should be pursuing, in a nutshell. So it's not really one thing, but it's just that and you can't go in and say, well, the CFO, well, the COO, well, the head of this, well, the head of that. You can't go in and say that. You've got to go in and say, well, the founder, if it's a founder-led organization.
Right.
If the founder is the chairman and they check in once a month and they don't do this, they don't do that, a lot of these principles still apply, but then it's to the CEO, the then CEO. We're talking about the founder-led organization when we talk about the context of this book.
One of the things that,
okay, go ahead.
We've talked about the idea of getting them out of the middle of the circle. And so when they're in the middle of the circle, everything has to run through them. Then they're sort of held hostage by their own success. And they don't have the freedom, the margin to do the things that they really ought to be able to do, so that they become victims of their own success to a large degree. So what we work with them to do, and it doesn't happen overnight, but as they gain more confidence in their team, can delegate away from themselves and have a taste of more margin, more time to think, and to say, all right, what is it that I really love doing? What is it that I don't really like that much? All right, then how can I offload that to somebody else to give them an opportunity? Because they won't do it like me, but I'm not the only one who can do it. It'll be different than the way I do it. But anyway, once they get a taste of this can happen without me, it does two things. One, it creates more value in the company because they're no longer the bottleneck, and all the value in residing with the owner.
Absolutely.
So it makes the company more marketable, more sellable. And the other thing, it really makes the company, their lifestyle is much improved. They can focus on the family priorities or their things that they love to do and do what they do best. So we're really helping the founders become the best version of themselves.
Yes.
And what we see is as they get a taste of that, they say, I love this.
Yeah.
I'm never going back to that old way of doing things. But we have to realize, though, it's something we have to deal with our whole life. You will never totally conquer the vices. The best we can hope for is that when we slip into it, we can kind of catch ourselves quickly, repent of that, and move on.
Absolutely. And to add some context to what you're talking about there, for a founder to get to the point where they can see that they're afflicted by founder syndrome, it requires the virtues. It requires a sense of humility to go, you know what? I can't do this alone. It requires empathy to go, you know what? I need to understand my team and to pour into my team. It requires courage, because a lot of the folks that I work with and helping them transition from being founder-led sales to actually being CEO,
Yeah.
Fear is the biggest obstacle.
Right.
What if they take my customer list? What if they, invest in them and they leave? Fear is such a big thing. And so you got to have those virtues helping you not only reveal to you what's going on with founder syndrome, but also to counteract it. And then you need the 3 wins for the how portion. Right. How do you build and retain a team that will unleash this collaboration effect on profit? What exactly is a key leader, and how do you keep them? And how do you keep them in a way that is in balance with you're still winning as a shareholder and the company is still winning? So nothing is being kicked out of kilter or out of balance. That is the essence of what we talk about in collaboration effect on profit. Mm-hmm. It is applying these concepts and showing how, as a founder, you can have a path forward. And then, David, as you talked about, just providing that vision of a more fulfilled life, because you have a more vibrant business, a more valuable business, and you have more fulfilled key leaders who love working with you.
One other thing,
go ahead,
Sean, just sorry to interrupt, but the 3 wins, quantifying the 3 wins also kind of relieves some stress.
Yes.
Because we know, okay, we are on schedule. We are hitting our target, or we didn't quite hit it, but we know we got to do to make it up. Whatever it is, knowing where you are, again, you can kind of take that deep breath and say, we're okay. I don't have to be frantically chasing after more than I can do. So that's another aspect, how the 3 wins and the virtues kind of they interact together. It's not one in isolation.
100%. Anything that we haven't talked about today during our time as it relates to founder syndrome, the great 8 virtues, and the 3 wins that you think would be important for?
Yeah, I think just clarifying the litmus test of how to include yourself as the founder, right? From a technical sense, maybe you're not the founder.
Mm-hmm.
But if you bottleneck and you're towards the very top of the pyramid, right, you could be in a 10,000 person, employee company, and you've got your own pyramid within that company,
right?
That could be part of it. It could be you started your company and you've grown it to 100 million in revenue, and 99 million of that revenue still relies on you getting up every day and being in the center of the circle.
Yeah.
It could be, and that's something I've got to answer myself. It could be, you've either purchased the business from the founder, you've come in as the next leader and owner, whatever it looks like, that transition. But if the bad habits succeed with the ownership, nothing's really changed, right? We replaced one founder for another. So that's the idea of the litmus test of, am I a founder-like person in my leadership and ownership of the company? That really is an important part of this. When you pick the book up and you look at it and say, well, I'm not the founder. That really is only part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's only part of it, and a smaller part than you may want to realize at some point, in most times.
One final thought too, Sean, on this. I think the founder syndrome is often unrecognized by the founder themselves. Everybody else can see it, but not themselves. So we're blind to our own vices. And so, but we think this is a constructive way to kind of for self-awareness, self-knowledge that is so helpful. But I think that would be a big part of what we are hoping to accomplish, not just with our, you know, we have certain goals as far as numbers of clients, but a bigger part of this message is beyond our clients. That's who else is out there that could benefit from this and really enter into this alignment process, what we would call a kingdom alignment process, that's going to create a great redemptive effect on business culture and human thriving, and advance the gospel and, you know, more people. And then I think so many times people that are at my stage haven't really done the work to kind of invest in the next generation behind them. And it's such a big opportunity. It's so important for, you know, for more senior people at our stage. It's so important for us to have this opportunity. And then what it means for the young people coming up next, what it helps them accomplish is just, you can't get any better than that. So that's kind of what we're wanting to invite more people into, is in that vision of multi-generational blessing that could happen if we were to do this together.
Yeah. David and Russ, thank you all so much for this conversation. This is just
absolutely
a treat.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sean. You're the best.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you liked what you heard, please hit like and subscribe and share this episode with anyone you think will find value in it. In the meantime, I'll leave you with this. Always remember, when you fix your systems, you'll fix your sales. Until next time.